I'm Pappy Mac, this is the Loyalists Garage, and we're going to start talking about British cars. Starting off, we're going with the absolute GOAT, the MGB, and all of its derivatives. The B is a unibody sports car with a 1.8-liter four-cylinder engine, and generally a manual transmission, and a solid rear axle with drum brakes. It does have disc brakes and double wishbones on the front. Starting off, though, we're going to go with the chrome bumper. This is a generation that ran from 1963 until 1974 in pretty much unmodified form, except for some minor changes like the seats and the door panels and little stuff like that. You'll hear people refer to these as Mark 1 and Mark 2 and Mark 3, but there's no real difference. But this is the chrome bumper generation. These cars came in a Roadster and a coupe. And the coupe was called the GT. The next generation is the rubber bumper, marked by these big, heavy 5-mile-per-hour rubber bumpers and slightly higher ride height. These were designed to meet U.S. crash test standards, even though this car was the first production car to feature a crumple zone, making it one of the safest sports cars on the market at the time. Minor changes, like I said, no real major changes to the structure of the body. This would be the car that would be produced by MG up until the end of production in October of 1980, with a few models being sold as 81s. Now we're going to get into the MGB derivatives, starting off with the weirdest one, the MGC, that has that weird bump that I just pointed out in the hood. That was to fit a 3-liter engine, and that engine was shoved into a car that weighed maybe 2,000 pounds. So it was very front end heavy. Unfortunately, it did not perform as well as MG hoped, and it was kind of a sales flop. It makes it kind of a scarce car today. They do command a higher price than the 4-cylinder versions, going upwards of 30 grand, 40 grand in restored condition, sometimes more. This car was designed to try and appease Donald Healey, whose Austin Healey 3000 was going out of production just as this went in. But the MGC didn't fool anybody, so MG, in its infinite wisdom, made this bad boy here. This is the Rover V8, aka the aluminum 215 Buick engine. It was designed by General Motors in the early 1960s, and GM pulled the plug on it immediately in favor of other corporate designs, selling it to the Brits. The Brits took this thing, they put the wonderful SU carburetors on it, and put it in damn near everything they could put it in. This engine would be in everything from sedans to the sports cars, all the way up including Land Rover, who used the engine into the early 2000s. In its final form, I think it was like 300 something cubic inches, a 5-liter, and it made a lot of horsepower. It's a durable engine, great design, and like I said, it was in everything. But they never sold the MGB V8 in factory form in the U.S., the one market where it would have actually saved the company. This would have been a monster of a car. So the V8 weighed about the same as the 4-cylinder engine and put out something like 3 times the horsepower. I mean, it was just bonkers. It was an amazing car. And in British Leyland fashion, they missed the mark and they did not offer this to the U.S. from the factory, probably due to emissions. As MG was winding down production at Abingdon, they were working on a number of ways to try and come up with extra money. One of them was this little creature here, which is an Aston Martin. Yeah, they worked with Aston. Aston was hurting for a small car to kind of supplement its range, so the general architecture of the B was used here. You can see it uses a coupe windshield, and I don't know. They had never built, but they did build this. This is the RV8. This was the very last MGB base derivative that was offered. These cars were sold in the UK and Japan, and they were immensely popular, but they were not enough to save the B. At this point, the B was super old. I mean, you're talking about a car that had a 35-year lifespan by the time that these rolled around. But these cars were neat. They had very little in common with the actual predecessor MGBs. just the general architecture was the same. There's something, I think it was like the hood and the trunk are the only things that are really interchangeable between the two, but the general design was the same. They featured the aluminum V8 that we were just talking about with fuel injection instead of the carburetors. You could get them with an automatic transmission, with a manual 5-speed. They were just fun to drive. Jeremy Clarkson drove one. There's a Top Gear video you can watch on that. But that was it for it. That was the final bang for MG, making front engine, rear wheel drive, simple sports cars. So there you have it. If you liked this video, or if you're interested in getting into British cars and would like to buy one for yourself, or have one you'd like to see restored, feel free to reach out. As always, like, comment, share, follow, please. I do this just for fun and it's for education. So have a good one.